Released in 1994, Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System was a groundbreaking title that revitalized the classic Donkey Kong character while introducing gamers to innovative graphics and gameplay. Developed by Rare and published by Nintendo, the game brought something entirely new to the platforming genre, setting new standards with its rich visuals, challenging levels, and immersive jungle atmosphere. Not only did it become a bestseller, but it also played a crucial role in establishing Donkey Kong as a major figure in Nintendo's lineup and set the bar for the 16-bit era. The history of development is a story of risks, innovations, and remarkable technological breakthroughs. Rare, a British game development company founded by brothers Tim and Chris Stamper, was looking to take advantage of the hardware capabilities. The company had previously worked on NES titles, but wanted to create something groundbreaking for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Nintendo saw potential in Rare's technological ambitions and, after being impressed by the company's experimental graphics work, partnered with them to reimagine one of their classic characters, Donkey Kong. Rare used advanced silicon graphics, SGI workstations, to create pre-rendered 3D models, which were then translated into 2D sprite forms. This technique was revolutionary at the time, as it produced graphics that looked nearly 3D on a 2D console, giving Donkey Kong Country a unique, polished look that stood out among other games. The game's lifelike animations, complex shading, and smooth, fluid character movements were all results of this pre-rendering technique, allowing Rare to achieve visuals that seemed almost futuristic. The partnership with Nintendo was a dream opportunity for Rare, as Nintendo offered resources and funding to push the boundaries. After about 18 months of intensive development, Rare released Donkey Kong Country, and it quickly became one of the best-selling Super Nintendo Entertainment System games of all time. Players followed Donkey Kong and his young sidekick, Diddy Kong, on a mission to retrieve Donkey Kong's stolen banana hoard. The game's antagonist, the cunning King K. Rool, along with his army of Kremlings, has stolen all the bananas, leaving Donkey Kong and Diddy with no choice but to embark on a quest to recover them. Although simple, the story served as a humorous, straightforward backdrop for the game's main focus, the gameplay. Alongside Donkey and Diddy Kong, the game introduced players to other members of the Kong family, such as Cranky Kong, who would dispense grumpy advice, and Candy Kong, who offered save points. These characters brought a new sense of personality and narrative depth to the game, giving players more than just a basic mission. Cranky Kong, notably, was portrayed as the original Donkey Kong from the 1981 arcade game, creating a sense of continuity and tradition within the series. Donkey Kong Country is a side-scrolling platformer with unique mechanics that set it apart from other games of its time. Here are some highlights. Players control both Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, switching between them to take advantage of their unique abilities. Donkey Kong is stronger, capable of defeating larger enemies, while Diddy is faster and more agile, ideal for quick maneuvers and smaller enemies. This tag team system added a strategic layer, as players had to decide which Kong was best suited for each challenge. Rare implemented highly responsive controls, allowing players to pull off precise jumps and rolls, enhancing the game's platforming experience. The physics were carefully balanced to make each character feel different, yet complementary, encouraging players to switch characters often to get through tricky sections. The levels offered a refreshing variety. Players journeyed through jungles, mines, snowy mountains, and underwater levels, each with its own set of enemies, obstacles, and visual style. The game also introduced animal buddies like Rambi the rhino, Engward the swordfish, and Espresso the ostrich, which players could ride to access new areas or defeat tougher foes. These animal helpers not only added a layer of fun, but also allowed for different styles of gameplay across levels. The game was filled with secrets. Players could uncover hidden rooms and bonus barrels, which often rewarded them with extra lives or banana tokens. These secrets gave completionists extra challenges and added to the game's replay value, encouraging players to explore every corner of each level. The game starts relatively easy, but gradually ramps up the difficulty, testing players' platforming skills, timing, and reflexes. Many levels included unique mechanics, such as moving platforms, underwater mazes, or minecart rides, which kept the experience fresh and challenging. The use of pre-rendered graphics on SGI workstations was a first in the gaming world, inspiring other developers to experiment with similar technology. These graphics made Donkey Kong Country one of the best-looking games on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and helped push the boundaries of what 16-bit systems could do. It sold over 9 million copies, becoming the third best-selling game of all time for the console, behind Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars. The game's success helped the Super Nintendo Entertainment System stay relevant in an era where newer consoles were being released, like the Sony PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. The game's soundtrack, composed by David Wise, is widely celebrated for its atmospheric and memorable music. Tracks like Aquatic Ambience and Jungle Groove stand out as some of the most iconic video game music pieces of the 16-bit era. Wise's use of ambient sounds and melodies contributed to the game's immersive feel, making each level distinctive and memorable. Donkey Kong Country was released in November 1994, just in time for the holiday season. Its incredible graphics, paired with the excitement around the Donkey Kong character, made it one of the most popular gifts that year. Many credit the game with giving the console a significant boost in sales toward the end of its life cycle. Before Donkey Kong Country, the Donkey Kong character was simply known as an antagonist in Mario's early arcade games. The game redefined him as a hero and introduced his family, including Diddy, Cranky, and Candy Kong, establishing the Kong family dynamic that would feature in future titles. Donkey Kong Country left an undeniable legacy and had a huge influence on the gaming industry. It not only redefined what platformers could be, but also demonstrated that games could use advanced graphics to immerse players in more dynamic, detailed worlds. The pre-rendered graphics technique popularized by Rare was adopted by other developers, leading to a wave of games with similar visual styles in the years that followed. The game's success spurred sequels on both the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and the Game Boy, each expanding on the original's mechanics and introducing new animal buddies, environments, and gameplay elements. The Donkey Kong Country series became a core part of Nintendo's platforming lineup, standing alongside Mario, Zelda, and Metroid as one of the most beloved franchises. Rare's work on the game also led to a long-standing partnership with Nintendo, resulting in additional hit games such as Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye 007 on the N64. Nintendo has since revisited Donkey Kong Country with newer titles like Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, both of which bring back the spirit of the original game with updated graphics and gameplay for modern audiences. The game's influence on platformers and its role in elevating the Super Nintendo Entertainment System into the 32-bit era remains a testament to Rare's innovative approach. In the years since, the game has retained its status as a classic. It's a beloved game for players who grew up with it, and a recommended title for those who want to experience the magic of the 16-bit era. From its legendary soundtrack to its stunning graphics, memorable characters, and challenging levels, Donkey Kong Country remains one of the high watermarks in gaming history and a shining example of how a familiar character can be reimagined to captivate new generations of players.